Welcome to another brand new episode of CPOV Autographs. I, of course, am your host, Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon, and we're going to get right into this week's episode. I am chatting with Brian Metolius. You may know him as the composer of Night of the Coconut, the composer for the majority of Patrick Willems' work. He wrote the theme song to the Infinity podcast. He wrote the theme songs for both Can't Get Enough of Keanu and We Heart Hartnett. He is a talented composer who's worked on a multitude of different things. We geek out about video game soundtracks. We talk about his influences. We talk about the origins of how him and Patrick got together and more in this awesome episode. So without any further ado, here is my incredible chat with the talented and brilliant Brian Metolius. Excellent. Well, I am so excited today because I have the legendary composer and incredible human, Brian Metolius. Brian, thank you for joining me.
Oh, well, thank you for having me, and this is the first time I've been called legendary. I'm not sure how to take that, but I appreciate it. Thank you for having me, Matt.
My pleasure. So, Brian, I'm so excited to have you here. What's really funny is that while I came to know you through the magic of Patrick Willems, which we will talk about in a bit, I had actually first heard your work when I didn't know it was your work. So it turns out my friend Anastasia, who got me into Harry Potter before, we found out that a transphobe ran that whole shindig, and introduced me to a little show that you may be familiar with called Puffs, which I never got to see live, but I listened to the music a bunch because she loved it. And it wasn't until I think after the Night of the Coconut premiere, where we both got to hang out at, where I came home and I looked you up online and I was like, oh, I'm going to check out Brian's other stuff. I want to have him on the show. And I pull up Spotify and I look you up because I was hoping to find some of the Patrick stuff. And I was like, Puffs? What the fuck? Brian wrote Puffs? And so I was completely blown away. And so it was just so funny to really get to know your stuff now and then realize I already knew your stuff from that, which I had heard through a friend.
Well, that's so funny. Let's see, some I'd say the two most meaningful collaborative experiences, or just like collaborators in my career are Patrick and the playwright for Puffs, Matt Cox. And he and I went to high school together. We played in a band together.
Nice.
Yeah, and So it's so funny that you're actually aware of, those two different sides of my career, both film and theater. That's so cool.
It's really cool because I can see the correlation between it. But I want to talk about, to start, Night of the Coconut and talk about that soundtrack specifically because you've been working with Patrick for a while,
right,
doing the video essays. But this was like a feature film. I have to imagine the scale of that versus just the video essays must have been a little bit more of a daunting task because it's just bigger. There's more of it.
Yeah, that's right. So whenever I would do the music for an episode, it's funny because the pace is so breakneck and the turnaround is so fast. Because what's interesting about doing music for his videos is I would get a video file of the scene that he wanted me to score, for example, and I would have to turn around and do that in basically a day. Okay, so I would, because he's doing it all himself. He's doing the directing, right, the shooting, the acting, the editing. So he's also got a tight schedule he has to hit. So when I get it, it's like at the 11th hour, and I have to basically write 5 to 10 minutes of music in basically an evening. And whenever I would put that, and then I would deliver it, try to do the best I can, most polished cinematic experience that I can possibly craft, and send it to him. And then the next day, it's already being watched and listened to. So that's not typical. The more typical way is what the Night of the Coconut experience was actually like. But even that was a little strange, and we'll talk about that here. Some of the music was written in July of 2021, and that, for example, the songs, because you have to know what you're gonna have someone sing on set ahead of time. You can't just do anything like that. But we can't do it the other way around. That doesn't make a lot of sense. So there was a lot of that. And as Patrick was editing the movie, just piece by piece, he would send it to me in 5 to 10 minute chunks over the course of a year. So I'm working on other things. I'm working on like other projects and that kind of stuff. And I have to like carve out time. I go, okay, well, I'm going to work on Night of the Coconut like Thursday and Friday this week. And so I would bring up my script and try to figure out how to make this 5 to 10 minute piece of the movie flow with other parts that I may not even have seen yet. And I'll ask like Patrick questions like, what kind of establishing shot are you going to have before this? He's like, okay, it's going to be this. How long is that establishing shot? So it becomes this like 3-dimensional puzzle of putting it together in these interesting chunks over the course of like 8 months.
Wow.
Yeah. So and then when I was done, there was all this time before people saw it. So it was quite the opposite of working on those like videos.
Well, and so like my next question is then, if you were getting the scenes piecemeal, was the first time you saw it in order and complete at the premiere?
Yes.
Wow. That's got to be a surreal experience to just be like,
yeah. Oh yeah.
I know how this stuff works, but does it work? And then it's on screen.
So there was a time, there were certain cues that I did bring in the finished WAV file of another and put it into my session, and then had the video start at the end, and then work from there. So any of the trickier transition points, I knew how those puzzle pieces were going to fit together. But honestly, yeah, the first time I watched the movie was with everyone else in the movie theater at the premiere night. Yeah, and it was surreal.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, it was such a fun experience, and like I talked last episode with Dave about this a little bit. I have to admit, I may have sold you out a little bit to David. So Dave, the agent, and I were chatting about how excited we are that as of when you're hearing this, anyone who wants, as long as they're still available, which I believe there are, you can get a vinyl version of this incredible soundtrack. There was a run of those. And I may have told Dave long after this was announced, so it was safe, that night you might have been so excited about it that you showed me a photo, much to the dismay of your manager and partner, who would sigh every time you showed someone.
Yeah. My wife, partner, manager, was very upset with me because anyone who would listen at the premiere, I was basically, talking about the vinyl and all that fun stuff, showing pictures of the of the mock-up of the of the cover before this was ever announced. But like anyone who would listen, because honestly, I still can't believe it, because I did just about nothing to make that happen. It just kind of fell on my lap, and if that's the way things go in my career from now on, it's gonna be easy, which I know it's not. But basically, Patrick told me, he goes, oh, and I think we're gonna do a Mondo release of the score. I'm like, what? Because like I own several. I own like tons of Mondo like releases. So the fact that there's going to be something with my name on it, with my music, I still can't believe. The day that I got the vinyl master back of entire side 1, entire side 2, I listened to it and I just could not believe it. And I know that the day that I'm going to get that test record, which is going to happen a little bit later this year, I just might faint. I don't know. This is the first time my music has been pressed onto vinyl, and it's a very big deal to me because I own so many and I'm such an enthusiast, first and foremost.
It's such a cool thing. And like I told Dave about it because I wanted to share with Dave your excitement. Like you were just so over the moon about how the movie went and how the soundtrack sounded. And it was the first thing I said to you after the film was how great the music was.
I really appreciate that.
That's the thing about your work with Patrick is you know how to do both levity and drama so well. Where do you think the influence for Patrick's work come from? I'm sure you're inspired by Patrick's work itself, but like,
sure.
Where would you say your scoring influences come from? Because you have such a unique sound, but it does remind me of some of my favorite epic scorers of the history of the world, and I'm just kind of curious where you pull from.
Well, I really appreciate that. That's a very high compliment. But as far as that goes, I mean, I went to school for composition, music composition, and I've always been a film fan, and I see just about every movie that comes out. So I always tackle it from first and foremost as a composer and a lover of film music. But as far as the influences, I mean, my favorite, I got to go to my favorites, which are Vertigo. It's one of my favorite scores by Bernard Herrmann. Jurassic Park, John Williams, and Good, Bad, the Ugly, Ennio Morricone.
Nice.
And I think as far as what I had done, the work I did for this, I did a lot of the score in a certain way, and the note I kept getting from Patrick was less orchestra, more synthesizers. So I was just like, okay, so I like, it's funny because one of the people I just mentioned, Ennio Morricone, he has a lot of orchestral stuff and a lot of synthesizer stuff. Like his stuff is so broad in that way, but also very, very specific to the needs of the film, which is one of the things that I really love about his work. No two of his scores are the same. They're all very iconic and tailor-made to that score. So the things that Patrick and I talked about for the sound after we had realized that we didn't need a lot of like strings and full Zimmer brass section. The things that we were talking about were Ennio Morricone's The Thing, but a lot of we made a Spotify playlist, like a private playlist where both of us could like drop tracks into. And the things that we had put in there, I actually took a screenshot and I have it right here next to me because I had a feeling this would come up, is Bjork, specifically tracks from Post and Homeogenic, the Watchmen soundtrack with Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, the HBO show. This really cool synth band that I love, The Knife, Shaking the Habitual. And for the actual, like, some of the songs, you have, Daft Punk and Harry Nilsson. So,
God, amazing.
Yeah, so it's just, which all those are some of my favorite things. So it's like, great, let's do this. But one thing that Patrick turned me on to that I'd never really listened to, which is the 80s film scores of Harold Faltermeyer. Specifically, the movie Fletch, which I still haven't seen, but I've listened to the score a lot. And that was Patrick's like big like arrow pointing sign for like, this is what I want. It's the music for Fletch. So I know that music pretty well, and I know that when I when I see that movie finally, it will be as surreal as watching Night of the Coconut from start to finish for the first time. It's like, oh, I know. Oh, this is the part where that comes in. Oh, this is the part where that comes in. So, yeah.
I love that. That's so cool. I mean, it's funny, like, to me, writing music for anything feels like a magic trick. Like, I don't have that in my brain. Like, I've written lyrics before, nothing published, but like, so I can wrap my brain around that. But like, creating music from nothing to me just feels like a magic trick. And like, even some of your work, like you've done a ton of podcast work as well. You wrote the theme songs for both of Patrick's podcasts as well as the Infinity podcast, which also was Patrick's podcast at one point. Yeah. And like, I'm curious, when writing a theme song, something very specific, like you did also do the theme song for Patrick's later videos, like what's writing theme songs like that versus writing scores? Is there a difference in your thought process and the writing process?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So when it comes to writing songs, it's kind of an extension of what I'm always doing. So for me, you can ask my wife, I am always singing around the house and like to narrate in song.
Amazing.
For example, like, I am walking to the other side of the room. I don't know what I'm doing here. Stuff like that. So it's just like,
Amazing.
I'm always thinking about that too. So when it comes to, getting some text, to that I want to set and figuring out how to, set that to music, it's already something I do a lot. But I do, when it comes to things with words, I like to start with the words. But as far as like score, though, that to me is all about pace and mood. And so I'll like watch a scene that I'm gonna score over and over and over and get a good sense of what needs to be hit. That's the term. You want the music to highlight a certain thing, or transition between hits. And I will basically pick a tempo in my in my DAW, which is I use Logic, and just watch the scene with a tempo clicking. And I'm just like watching the movie, just like with a click, 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 and I'm just like nodding my head along with the just like, does this feel good? It's like, no, this feels wrong. This feels wrong. And then I'll like make it slower or make it quicker in order to hit the things that I need to hit to just get a good sense of the feel and the energy that's needed. Just from the way that I like to do it, I like to err on the quicker side. I think there are other people who do a really good job, on a more dramatic, slower side. But I like to keep things peppy. Keep things snappy. That's just how I like to do it, I guess.
It's funny. I have this vision now because Patrick's theme song has lyrics that I envision you walking around your house singing, "This is Patrick's show."
Right.
Like as you were writing it. Like
right.
That just, to me, makes it funnier.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Especially because what he wanted was a Bond-esque theme song, right? I mean, you look at it now; it's like obviously, but before there was visuals to it, which were made by my wonderful wife. The actual song itself, I was playing around with the chords I was already using for his theme in the actual show, and just playing them like they were a Bond theme. And I even gave myself, like a. It didn't make it into the actual thing, but down, 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 down. I'm just like,
right, yeah.
So it's like, okay, it's going to be like a Goldfinger. It's Patrick's show. Like, why not? But yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I'm. If there's a certain amount of playfulness with my music, that is the reason why. Is because for me, it is like play. I'm having a good time.
I think that's key.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I feel like you can feel that in your work. At least I can as a fan of music. But I also notice motifs and like certain choices that I'm like, these can't be accidents. And so like you say that your music nerdery goes pretty far back. Like for me, I've been listening to records since I can remember, and cassettes since I can remember. My dad would always play them for me growing up.
Yeah.
Like, how far back does your music nerdery go? Were you like a little kid listening to full albums and like and taking in music?
Oh yes. Okay, so I have some amazing musicians in my family, but as far as my actual like immediate family, they were all like my brother and sister. They played cello and trumpet through school, but they've gone on and they're amazing in their own ways. They're a nurse and arborist respectively. But like I'm the one that just kept doing it. I'm the weird one. But I've always listened to music. I remember, but even before I went to school. So we're talking like, or before like band classes. I think it was like I was like in third grade. I would just start crying in the middle of the night, knowing like, and my parents would come in. They're like, what's wrong? I'm like, I need a drum set. And my grandpa had to fly in from like New York to buy the drum set, just like because like it's like this kid is just this is all he talks about is just a set of drums. That's all I wanted, and I would put on like the CD Walkman, and I learned how to play drums listening to all the Beatle records, Bare Naked Lady records.
Amazing. Yes.
It was the mid-90s. And my obsession runs deep. It has always been a thing. I used to listen to music to fall asleep. I obsessively listen to new music. I'm always looking for new music. And I know a lot of people talk about, that people's music tastes are pretty much solidified by the time they're like 19 and they stop progressing. But like, I don't know that. And I maybe this is true for you too. That's some BS. That's not true at all.
No.
Yeah, exactly. It's everything to me. I've kind of structured my life to continue to do it.
I mean, that makes total sense. And yeah, no, I agree. Like growing up, like I did have my comfort zones, like heavy metal and rock and like alt. But like as I got older, I started listening to more hip hop and nerdcore and nerdy stuff and like classical and like even country. Like, and now it's like, I don't care what genre something is. I care what it is. Like, tell me what it is and I'll listen to it. And then I'll make the judgment of whether I like it or not. The genre rarely plays a factor into whether I like something or not, because I kind of just want to get, like, I'm such a music nerd that like I want to give everything a fair shake.
Yeah.
And like if I genuinely don't like something, I want to have a reason for it. Like I genuinely don't like Nickelback because they're trite and repetitive.
Sure.
And their chords are simple. And like I have explanations for why I don't like it, you know?
Right.
But on the same hand, like I love CRJ because, well, A, she's brilliant, but B, like the complexities are from album to album, the different styles she sings, like all that stuff. Like I will talk about music endlessly because I kind of like really dig into it.
Yeah. Oh man. Anytime someone brings up CRJ, my mind immediately goes to my favorite song of hers, which is "I'm Just Going to the Store," and it's such an amazing little pop song, and it's so simple. It's so simple, and it's it's so perfect. What have you been listening to lately?
So, I mean, I've gotten stuck in a bit of a comfort zone just through the pandemic as it wanes, but hasn't ended yet, and like just kind of fall into those comforts to like really just like get myself through my commutes and stuff. But a rapper that I really like who's based in New York, Schaefer the Dark Lord, just put out a new record that I've been obsessed with called The Derelict Craft, which is like a concept record about going off into space and being on a ghost ship, essentially like an abandoned spaceship, and seeing things in space. And it's a really brilliant record. He's done some really great work. He did an album like 6 or 7 years ago called The Sick Passenger, which was also a concept record. So I'm a big fan of his stuff.
Okay, cool. I'll check him out. I've never heard of him. That's fantastic.
What else? I mean, I listened to a ton of CRJ and Halsey. I was listening to just Halsey's first record today because I hadn't listened to it in a while. I've been listening to a lot of soundtracks for video games. There's an indie game called Boyfriend Dungeon that I've been obsessed with that has this really great synth pop record.
Right, I am familiar. Yes.
Such good music.
Absolutely.
One of the things that's been amazing for me as an adult is to realize that video games can actually sometimes do more than movies and TV can, just with the scope and the length. I'm playing a remake of an RPG that never came out in the States called, I don't know if it's Live Alive or Live a Live, but like it's LIVE.
Right. And I have no idea how it's said either, but I get like the Nintendo notifications that it's coming, and I'm like, oh, okay. Is it Live a Live? Live a Live? Live Alive?
Live Alive.
live a live. Yeah, I don't know what it's called either, but it looks interesting.
Yeah, I've been playing it, and it's like it's the director of that game is the director of one of my favorite games of all time, Chrono Trigger, and so
Chrono Trigger,
the 2D HD effect with these orchestrated soundtracks like feel like how I like to say it feels like how I imagined my Super Nintendo sounded, right?
Yeah.
Like it didn't sound that good, but in your imagination, it looked and sounded that good. It was like the biggest thing. Chrono Trigger is one of my favorite video game soundtracks of all time.
Yeah, same.
The Magus theme, that salsa theme, like first of all, I never even realized that it was like a samba salsa feel until I was an adult. Like as a kid, I just liked it. Yeah. And then I was like, as an adult, like I had a friend who didn't play Chrono Trigger at all, was just like, oh, that's a dance song. I was like, what? They're like, yeah. You could dance to this. I was like,
oh, for sure.
Yeah, Chrono Trigger is one of those soundtracks that at a young age, I was like, oh, video games can be epic. Video games can feel like Star Wars and those kinds of things. Like it kind of blew my little mind.
Oh, I mean, I love video game soundtracks. I've played a lot of video games. For me for like the video game that really was like, wow, video game music is amazing is basically any Legend of Zelda game. And
Yeah,
I've played
of
them
course.
all. They are all fantastic. The music is so good. Koji Kondo is incredible. Yeah, and more recently, some really great ones are the Portal games.
Yeah, hell yeah, Jonathan Colton.
Yeah. Oh, insane music. It's so good. And I know that you just played Elden Ring.
I did. I
was
finished
following
that.
along on Twitter.
Thank you.
Yes. But yeah, also great music. I love... It's one of those things where the game is so stressful that sometimes you don't really... you aren't necessarily listening to the music as it's happening.
Yeah.
Because you're trying really hard not to mess up because the
Yep.
margin for error is so slim. But like that's part of the experience, and the music definitely pluses that emotion. But I had to like listen to the soundtrack away from the game to like really figure out what was going on, and the theme for Moog, the Lord of Blood, is incredible. It is so good. Like, it's the only track on the album that uses a harpsichord and like this really amazing choir, and it's like, yeah, it's good stuff.
Choirs in video game songs, like the reason that One Wing Angel slaps as hard as it does from Final Fantasy VII is because of that choir. Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
also, my favorite discovery as like a high school student was that the composer for Final Fantasy VII and a bunch of other games also had a heavy metal band called the Black Mages that covered those songs. When I discovered that, I was like, this can't be real. There's no way that's possible.
It's real as can be.
So
and it's
blown away.
so good. Yeah, that music is so incredible. Matt Cox and I actually saw the Final Fantasy VII concert last December at Carnegie Hall.
I was at that show.
Oh my God, you were? Hey!
Yes, I was at that show. I went with my friend Jesse Vitelli, who's a writer for Prima Games. Yeah, he let me know that it was coming, and I was like, oh yeah, I want to go. And like everyone else, I cried during Aerith's theme in a packed theater. Like, oh my God, that concert was incredible. It was also my first like real concert and real event during the pandemic, and
same.
was just full of emotion. But man, that show was incredible.
Yeah, that was really cool. Hey, we were both there. That's really cool.
Hey. But it's cool to hear that you like video game soundtracks too, because like I really do get a sense from your music that you're pulling from multiple places. You know, I don't know if like you like compartmentalize your inspirations. I imagine not, right? It all mixes together like most of us. Like you're just kind of pulling from everywhere.
Yeah, I think it really depends.
Yeah,
yeah, because like the way I think about it is, for certain things, it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna sound like an amalgam of all the things I like. But on the other hand, there are certain times where I'm like, oh, I should really do something like this. And when I do, I used to be worried. Like, it's like, oh, do you think people, when they hear this, will think I didn't stray too far from Final Fantasy VI?
Right.
Like, will people, they'll think, oh, you ripped that off. But what's funny is we start to realize when you do this enough that no matter how much you try to sound like something, you always end up sounding like yourself. And even if you try to sound like anything specific, like you just by the nature of you doing it, and that's, how music works, you will always sound like yourself.
Yeah. I am glad. I want to go back that you brought up Koji Kondo and video game soundtracks, because I find when talking about composition, we often talk about, John Williams and Henry Jackman and like all these people who are worth talking about. But like,
rightly so.
Right. But Koji Kondo has been making not just music for the Zelda games, but for Mario has been making some of the soundtracks to some of Nintendo's best games for decades, and none of them sound the same. I was just having a conversation not that long ago. It has yet to air as of when we're recording, but will have probably aired by the time this is out. Everything's timey-wimey when you bank episodes. But on my video game podcast, I was talking with my friend Jeff about how Zelda's history is so vast, and there was this period in the Game Boy Advanced era where Capcom was putting out a ton of the games on the handhelds.
Right.
But it was still Koji Kondo's score. But because these games were in a different medium and they were a different company, like you could tell there was a difference, but you still knew it was Koji Kondo, but he was taking risks or trying different things. Like one of my favorite Zelda games is the Minish Cap on the Game Boy Advance.
Oh, okay, great game.
Because I feel like, well, first of all, it's the first one to not really have Ganon as the focus. It's got a different person, and like just the story is very different, but like it just felt a little funky, a little weird, right? It felt
Sure, yeah.
off
It's
the
a little,
beaten path.
It's way different. Yeah.
And so, like, I love when you can hear that in his music. And I think Koji Kondo has been doing this for so long that there are some stuff that you're like, oh, I know that's him. And then there's other stuff where you're like, wait, he wrote that?
Yeah.
Koji Kondo did that? And, like, I think that's something that, like, in movies happens too. But I feel like in video games, you can really experiment from game to game in a way that you can't in film.
So one of my favorite things about Koji Kondo is he has an album, and maybe you've heard it, that he put out with his band, which he's playing the music of Super Mario World around the same time that the game came out. But like it's like fusion jazz funk, and it's it's like played by like actual musicians in a studio, and it's the music of Super Mario World on the Super Nintendo. Have you heard this record?
Yeah, I have.
Okay,
it's
good.
Phenomenal. It's incredible.
It's interesting to just because I think what we're kind of going towards is so much of that early video game music was limited in a way by the technology that he could use, or like anyone could use. Like there's really only 3 tracks and a noise track, so 4 tracks that he could write music to on like the original Nintendo. So it's super, super limited, but he still came up with the Super Mario Brothers theme song, you know, the Legend of Zelda, and like the Kid Icarus music, which is also great for that same limitation. And you know, very simple sine waves and square waves, sawtooth waves, and it's still iconic. And it's really interesting with like games like Super Smash Brothers to hear like, you know, I wouldn't say it's like necessarily the original intent of the tracks to have them played fully realized with like, you know, an orchestra or whatever, but it's really interesting to hear that may be somewhere closer to what Koji Kondo was thinking of, because, you know, he's got a lot of he was very much into, you know, that kind of fusion jazz and funk and stuff from the, you know, 80s coming out of Japan, which is something that I was really obsessed with during lockdown. Was the band Cassiopeia from Japan in the 80s, because they were such a huge influence on video game music and all of the musicians that, you know, wrote that music. So yeah, yeah, this is like right up my alley. I love that we're talking about this stuff. It's so good.
Well, I'll definitely have to have you on my video game podcast to talk more about video game composition, because we want to do more episodes on it. And having an actual composer would give us some semblance of credibility, as neither me or, well, Jeff actually writes music also, but I don't.
Well, I'm here for the illusion of credibility. Yes,
I appreciate
that. Count me in.
But like, I love what you're talking about, because like I often go back to soundtracks like Mega Man 4 and like Mega Man X to show the two sides of the like 8-bit and 16-bit coin of what insane stuff you could do. I think about how the original stuff on Mega Man X were these shredding, like guitar sounding, like synths.
It's so good.
But no guitar to be found. It's all electronic. And then when people started remixing them on overclockremix.com and other websites that did like video game remixes, they would use actual instruments, and I'm like, oh my God, it can sound like this? Like, and it's not like you were saying with the fusion jazz stuff too. It's a thin line between the original version and like that next level. Like, they clearly heard it that way. And I think it's fascinating to think about that and think about how limitations probably push you to do better work, not worse work, because you have to figure out those confines.
Right. And you can't hide behind anything. And it's because you can't do overdub after overdub and flesh it out forever until your heart's content. It forces you to basically figure out what is the bare bones of this composition and how best can I get the best sound out of this really, you know, by today's standard, like primitive sound card. So yeah, I mean, yeah, the Mega Man music, that's some of the best. Mega Man and Castlevania are incredible video game music soundtracks, especially in the Super Nintendo era.
Yeah. I mean, some of the best stuff is on that Super Nintendo and the Game Boy Advance are two of my favorite consoles of all time, I think. But I'm also a Nintendo fanboy, so I like them all.
Yeah.
I do want to go back and talk a little bit more about your relationship with the incredible one, Patrick Willems.
Sure.
So you've been working with Patrick for a while, but I'm curious, because I don't think I've actually heard this anywhere. How did you and Patrick connect? How did you get involved with Patrick's work? Because in the previous episode, Dave talks about he was essentially a fan and just
Yep.
kind of flailed at Patrick until they worked together. And so, like, I'm curious how you got connected with Patrick and got involved in that world of video essays and composing for him.
Yeah, so what I started. Okay, so I was a subscriber on his channel after he did the X-Men video. I was like, well, this is great. I'm gonna subscribe. And then like I was a subscriber on his channel for. This is funny to talk about now. I was a subscriber on his channel for like I don't know, like a couple years. I'd watch every video that came out, just like I'm sure everyone else does. And then I was just like, oh, I'm like watching his like style start to come to the fore and his directing, because I know now it's because he was getting bored.
Yeah,
which
right.
which I totally understand. He started to do more narrative stuff and do really interesting things with the camera, but still talking about the things that he wanted to talk about, film and stuff. And the things that he was talking about, I felt like, wow, we like some of the same things. Wow, we have a lot of the same opinions on some of these things. That's interesting. Wow. Yeah, I bet if we were in the same room, we would find we had a lot in common. But anyway, fast forward to one video he made where at the end he was, doing his like spiel at the end, like thank you for watching. And he goes, I want to do more narrative stuff. If you're interested in helping out, if you think that you can, I want to work with more people. And I said, well, I was like, he's probably already got a composer. My wife manager kicked me and was just like, are you kidding me? Send him an email. So I was like, all right. Googled him, found his website. He had his email on his website. I was like, you know what? Fine. And I sent him, a cold email. It was just like, hey, my name is Brian. I write music. I'm sure you already have someone in mind, but if you don't, this is the kind of stuff I do. Let me know what you think. And he was like, I actually don't have a composer. Like, it was like this weird, like email that I got like a day later. It was just like, oh my gosh, wow, that was remarkably easy. All I had to do was just like say, hey, me. But it's funny because I've also seen the flip side. And this is kind of what scared me, going like almost stopped me from doing it completely, is my wife is also a filmmaker. She does animation and has done stuff for Night of the Coconut and for Patrick's channel. So if you're familiar with those, you've seen her opening title sequence or the Charles origin sequence. She and Madeline Bundy did that sequence with Patrick. But so she was doing like an animated film, and she did like a Kickstarter for it and was making it and stuff. And she received an email from a composer literally every single day because of the Patreon. It was just like, hello, I am a composer and I see that you have money. If you would like, in exchange for money, I will write music for your film. Like literally, it was constant. So I was under this impression that anytime anyone was making anything, there was at least 30 to 40 composers basically yelling, pick me, pick me, pick me, as loud as they as loud as they could. And which is funny because it's like, yeah, I want to be picked, but like I thought it was funny that no one else had asked Patrick, at least up until that point. I don't know if anyone else has at this point. But I'm so glad I finally did that. But there was a while where I started, it was like a few months went by, and he would, still make videos and stuff. And I think he had me in his back pocket ready for when he would do like a short film or something like narrative. But I was just like, no. We got to do this now.
Right.
Okay? If you like, so what I did was I took a clip of a film essay that he had already put out, and I said, what if it were scored? Do you think this is more effective? And in my head, I'm like, this is more effective. This is a better way of conveying your information, hitting your comedic and narrative beats, whether you know it or not, because you think that you're just making like film essays. And like, I say just film essays, like in quotes, because it like anything, like even that is like a short form documentary when you really think about it. And documentaries are scored. They just are. So I gave him an example. It's like, here you go. Put this in at minute so-and-so. Enjoy. This is what we could be doing. And he was just like, oh, man, we are doing this now. I was like, yes.
Nice.
It came together. So it was really the things that people always tell you to just don't be afraid to cold email, be polite, don't be annoying, but like, put your best foot forward. So, and it's just one of those things that like, he's like one of my really good friends now. Like when we first met, I basically told him, hey man, I'm in New York. If you want to get, coffee, cause I'd already done, the Stop Talking About Plot Holes video, the now infamous, don't talk about plot holes video. I scored that whole thing. That was the first time I'd written something for his videos. I was like, hey man, if you want to get coffee, let's just chat, see what's going on. And he's like, sure, I'll give you 30 minutes. We talked for 3.5 hours. I got a text from my wife saying, the wedding that we are in town for starts in an hour. Where the hell are you? It's like, oh shit. So I basically had to run from the coffee shop to our hotel, get changed, and basically got there before the actual wedding started. And she was a bridesmaid, so she was like definitely watching the crowd saying, where is he?
Where is my husband?
Right, where is he? And that's Patrick's fault. So, but anyway, we'll hopefully get to make many, many more things. But that's how that came together.
I love that. And I love this narrative that you're putting forward, which is true, that I don't think enough people know that cold emailing is okay. And especially if you're nice and kind about it, like that's how you make connections. And
100%.
And I feel like you'll appreciate this as a video game fan. One of my favorite voice actors is Yuri Lowenthal. He's the voice of Spider-Man. He's done a ton of other things. He's Sasuke and Naruto and all these other things. He was a guest on a friend's podcast. Awesome episode for the podcast called Lore Party. And I wrote my friend, I was like, hey, I saw that you had Yuri on. I would love to have him on. Do you have a way to reach out? And so they gave me his email and I reached out and I just cold emailed him. I'm like, hey, I'd love for you to come on my podcast, do an interview, chat. And he's like, hey, Matt, I'm really busy. I appreciate you reaching out, but I just don't have time right now. This was at the end of maybe 2020, I think. Mm-hmm. And so I said, okay, no worries. Could I reach back out next year? Do you think you might have more time? He's like, yeah, absolutely. Feel free to reach out. I'll let you know. Yeah. And so I waited and I sat on it. And then I reached out early in 2021, I went, hey, Yuri, you think you have some time to come on the podcast? He's like, yeah, I'd love to. He comes on. It's great. He's lovely. And then 2 months later, he emails me and goes, hey, Matt, can I come back on your show? I was like, absolutely.
Great.
And now, like, I've spoken to Yuri a bunch of times. He's been great. Like, he's just delightful. And, like, that would have never happened if I didn't cold email him. Like,
right.
And it's like, it's a cheesy saying, but you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And it's true.
100%.
It's like, you shouldn't say no for other people. Let them say no to you, because that's the worst thing that'll happen. Right?
What's the worst that happen? You don't hear anything and nothing happens, and it's the same as if you had not done it. Like, that's what it is. And I think when you're starting out, it's hard to differentiate the work you're doing because you do it for fun, mm-hmm. and it's like personal, and maybe work as a business. And I think there is a switch you have to turn on, that's the business brain, and realize that everyone that's doing something that you want to talk to or work with is treating their art and their creativity like it's a job. And when you reach out to them, asking them if they can do something with you or do something, like, you're not actually crossing any weird personal barrier. You're actually engaging that person in what they do, and it doesn't matter that there's no money involved. Maybe it's still a business transaction. The fact that you make friends with the person, and everything is great from then on out, and you think of it as a personal relationship, it's still. Cold emailing someone is a business move, essentially, and that took a long time for me to realize, and sometimes I need reminders, right. And that's also the nature of the game.
Yeah, totally. Before we wrap up, I do have a question to ask you that I've been asking all of my previous guests. We are still living through a pandemic. I'm hoping it's tapering off. Please wear a mask, get vaccinated, get boosted if you can. But I've been asking people during the pandemic, while it's been bad on a multitude of different levels for a whole ton of different reasons for different people, there was some good for, I think, all of us to come out of it, whether it's more time at home or refocusing on what we want to do for a living or all this stuff. And so I like to ask my guests, was there a silver lining to the pandemic, as horrible as it was, or like a moment or a thing that got to happen because you were home more, or because you had this time?
Yeah, so what's interesting is I think my wife and I got to watch a ton of movies together. A ton of movies together. And what we decided to watch was, because like we didn't want anything depressing, we didn't want anything weird. What we decided to watch was every single kick-ass action film you could possibly think of. And because like it's so much fun to watch people, especially during lockdown. It was very cathartic to see people who didn't take no for an answer, just like went into a room, kicked a lot of ass. We watched, oh my God, so many Jerry Bruckheimer movies.
Hell yeah.
We we finally watched like The Rock and Con Air.
Ooh,
like
good
like
ones.
like yeah, oh yeah, the great ones. I also watched. We watched for the first time all of the Fast and the Furious movies.
Excellent
And
choice.
I fell in love, and I can't believe I wrote them off for so long. And I have Patrick to thank for that as a suggestion. But also, yeah, basically any like cheesy action flick, like we made a point to watch it. The good and the so bad it's good. So I'd say that is the closest thing to a silver lining I could think of, because we still talk about it. It's like, remember when we watched Face Off, then The Rock, and like back to back, and we felt like our minds were exploding because we spent all day just like sitting and playing Animal Crossing, and then all of a sudden we see Nicolas Cage come like with his beautiful flowing hair off of the airplane. That's, you know, that GIF. Just like, wow, this is sensory overload and kind of what I need right now. I'd say that's the closest thing to a silver lining I could think of.
I love that. And this is further proof, Brian, that I think we are destined to become the best of friends, because my spouse and I did the same thing. And it started with the John Wick movies, also because of our mutual friend, Patrick Willems.
Yeah.
And he'd done that video showing the locations in real life from the John Wick movies. And I went, I got to finally watch this movie. Sarah, do you want to watch them? And they're like, sure. And so we watched the first one, and afterwards, like, our jaws on the floor. I'm just like, I gotta watch this. And so then we watched the second one the next day. And then it was at that time that it was on the cusp of the third one coming out of theaters, but not being on demand yet. We're like, no, we have to wait. And so we did that. We did Atomic Blonde, Gunpowder Milkshake. We just ran the gamut of, is this a stupid action movie? Great, let's watch it. And now our next step is, I have only seen the first two Mission Impossible movies. I barely remember them. But I have promised Patrick that before the new one comes out, I am going to watch all of them. And so my spouse, that's next on the docket for me and my spouse, I'm going to rewatch the first two and then watch the rest.
I think you were in for a treat.
I'm very excited.
Those movies are phenomenal. I think this is controversial, like all Mission Impossible like rankings are. But I think if you're going to go right back into the third one, I'd say that's the weakest one. But after that, 4, 5, 6, and 4, 5, and 6. Those are the ones that are out now. Are all incredible movies. They are insane. So I wish you the best of luck in your mission, should you choose to accept it.
Thank you, Brian.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we're probably going to start from the very beginning just because it's been a while, and that way, hearing what I've heard about the third, like, we can ease past the third. I mean, the only thing I remember about the second movie is the spinning motorcycle scene and the Metallica song on the soundtrack, "I Disappear." Like, that was my jam.
Soon as I'm gone, it's time I disappear.
God, that song's so bad, but I loved it.
Oh, it's incredible. Incredible song.
Brian, this has been delightful. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me.
Thank you for having me.
Before we close out, I would love for you to tell folks where they can find you online, where they can find your work online, where they can possibly buy a certain vinyl record if it's still on sale, and all of that cool stuff. Please plug your stuff.
Sure. Hello, I'm Brian Metolius. You can find me on Twitter at Brian Metolius. There you will also find a link to buy the record, Night of the Coconut, the original motion picture soundtrack, on vinyl on the Nebula store. It is made by Mondo. Don't go to Mondo, though. It's not sold there. It's sold on the Nebula store. But also, I think this is coming out after the actual soundtrack will drop on... because that's going to be August 6th. So you can listen to The Night of Sound. Like, if you're like, I don't know this stuff, but I don't want to buy that record. Or I don't know if I'm going to buy the record. You can listen to it. It's on Spotify and Apple Music and Tidal and all of the streaming services. So yeah, thank you for letting me plug Night of the Coconut soundtrack. Thank you.
My pleasure. I mean, look, I have the poster on my wall. Like,
yes, you do.
I'm a fan. I'm a fan of you. I'm a fan of Patrick, the whole shebang. And I'm happy to have had you on the show. The last thing I'll ask you to do as we wrap up is I have a saying. It's born out of my now and on definite hiatus podcast. I had a music podcast called Crash Chords that technically ended, but I like to pretend it's on hiatus forever because that's just easier for me emotionally. Sure. But the saying is, music is life and life is good. It's this idea
I love that
as long as you're creating, as long as you're making stuff, even when life is at its hardest, if you're pouring your passion into the things you love to make, it's not that bad. So, Brian, to wrap up the show, if you could say music is life and life is good, we'll close out the program.
I have no problem saying this because that sounds phenomenal. And now that we mention it, music is life and life is good.
That's it for this episode of CPOV Autographs. Our theme music is by Michael Kill. Our logo was designed by Case Aiken and Joey Amons. If you liked the show, please rate and review wherever you get your podcasts. It's a great way to help us reach more listeners. Questions, comments, or guest recommendations? Email mr.matt.storm@gmail.com or hit us up on Twitter at CPOV Autographs. Thank you so much for listening.
Hey.
Oh, hey, Jeff.
What's going on, guys?
Oh, talking about Superman.
Oh, cool. I could talk about Superman.
I could talk some more about Superman.
We know.
I'll bet a few people would want to get in on this.
I'm down.
You know it.
That sounds like fun. I'll do it.
Cool, let's do it. We can call the show Men of Steel.
And you can find it at certainpov.com.
Or wherever you get your podcasts.
Yay.
CPOV.
certainpov.com.